Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the opening kick on this Veterans Day Monday. Before we get going, I won't go any further in this show without taking a second to stop and say Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, to the veterans in your family, the veterans in your life, and every veteran that has put their life on the line to give us Americans the freedoms we have today to do things like talk football that mean nothing in the world, but can't say it enough, can't scream it loud enough. Thank you to all the veterans on this day and every day for doing what you do for our great country. It wouldn't be a great country without the veterans that put their lives on the line. So thank you from the opening kick from the bottom of our hearts. Happy Veterans Day to you guys. I hope you have had a good one. With that said, man, it's Monday night. Football rolls on. And if you weren't paying attention this weekend, it just keeps getting crazier in this lovely world of college football. And so I could not be more excited to be back on this Monday night with my man, Gerald Smoke Dixon. What is up, sir?
Petty, you know what? The veterans got their time. I'm going to give you your time. Go ahead and you tell me how much you want to say, I told you so. So go ahead and get it all out. So once we get rolling in the show, I'm not going to have to hear it. Go ahead.
Smoke, I am not one to be braggadocious. I'm not one to rub anybody's face in the fact that last week at this time, I sat here in this square and told one Coach Smoke Dixon that the Ole Miss Rebels were about to whack some Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, and I said no shot.
No shot. I actually got a text from you after that interception, 7-0 ball game over. Never a chance.
I was saying it for the other team.
Dude, I have never been more excited to sit on a text for 3 hours and be able to come back to it than I did that one, my friend.
No doubt about it. So what else you got for me? Just tell me.
But hey, look, we'd be remiss, man. Everybody, the big talk going into the week, the two big headlines going into the week. Can Lane Kiffin win the big game, and can Jalen Milroe go into a raucous environment and lead Alabama to a victory? And both were answered with a resounding yes. Man, we're going to talk Alabama rocking into the play. Now went from maybe rocky on to the playoffs to, look, I saw we were talking about a stat before the show. 3 of the top 5 teams, Texas, Indiana, Penn State, don't have a win against the top 25 team, and Bama has 4. So, Bama's just all of a sudden looking like, I don't sleep on the Tide. So we're going to talk a little Alabama football. We're going to talk a little bit about Pete Golden and the Ole Miss defense. That might be a hot topic to ruffle some feathers. I don't know. He was a hot name in the Alabama land for a while, and all of a sudden you look over across the state lines, and that Ole Miss defense is doing nasty things.
He's a punching bag for all Alabama alums. Marvin Constant
made a shirt line.
Mookie Love Constant, the same guy. I think you'd be happy if you had Pete Golden right now.
Hey,
manipulate the Bama defense. But hey, listen, it was a good weekend for all Bama fans. Mm-hmm. So we'll keep on going. My bad.
We're gonna keep on going. And look, without a doubt, college football keeps rolling. We got Ole Miss is off this week. Bama's pretty much off. This is the weekends that Nick Saban hated the most when you play Mercer right there at the end of the season. But look, we got some elimination games coming up. So get your popcorn ready. I mean, we're going to look quietly. All the noise last year about the Colorado Buffaloes and Dion, and then they win 4 games with all this. And now you don't hear anything about them. And quietly out there in Boulder, Colorado, Prime's got him a hell of a ball club. They're 20th in the country, kicking some tail. They've got a big one coming up Saturday with Utah coming to town, and maybe they can roll into the playoff conversation. Then you've also got BYU, who played with fire with that same Utah club just this last weekend. We're going to talk a little bit on that. Maybe the refs had something to do with it, trying to keep BYU in this thing.
Stop it. You guys got that.
But look, BYU's got another one. Kansas coming off a beatdown of Iowa State, red hot, going out to BYU. It's going to be smoking in Morgantown. Also, man, got to talk the big game in the SEC, biggest game of the night. Game day is going to be there. Tennessee is headed to Georgia. And let me hit you with this quick stat. The last time Kirby Smart lost back-to-back games was in his first year, and it was to Ole Miss, followed by Tennessee.
Ooh, history repeats itself. Can we
history
stay?
Itself this weekend between the Hedges and the Athens? Who knows? But one thing we do know is we got one hell of a sponsor here, and that is Lamstone Company. Let me tell you a little bit about them real quick. RealRock.co. Go to it after the show, obviously, not right now, to check them out. But hey, Lamstone Company. Have you ever dreamed of having beautiful natural stone in or around your home? Well, don't settle for subpar materials. Check out Lamstone Company's selection of natural stone products to meet all your project needs. Lamstone is located in Aniana, Alabama, and is one of the oldest, most trusted stone sources in the state. So contact them today. Tell them we sent you by using the promo code the Bama Standard and get 10% off your first order. As always, we thank you, Lamstone, for keeping the lights on here and letting us do our thing at the opening kick. But with that said, man, let's get this show rolling. First of all, hit that like and subscribe if you're in there. We love you. Again, thank you for visiting us on this Veteran Day. I hope you got the grill going, maybe a cocktail in hand and ready to talk a little ball. But while you do that, hit that subscribe. And if you're on Twitter X, come over and do the same thing. Go to the Bama Standard and give us some love. With that said, love in the air down in Baton Rouge, but it was not corn dog love. It was Jalen Milroe's legs, loving some LSU holes in defense. Man, tell you what, you know, again, one of the big questions going into this week is Milroe had struggled at times on the road in loud environments. Not just Milroe, the offensive line, false starts. It just seemed like communication had been a problem. And they go down there, and I've said this on several shows. I love looking in the quarterback's eyes. And then at one point, did Milroe look even the utmost concerned with the crowd in Death Valley, and it showed by his performance on the field. I mean, I was also really impressed with the game plan that DeBoer and Sheridan had. I feel like they stuck with what works best, what plays best with the weapons at hand. And man, it turned into a show. They saw, you look, LSU doesn't have a great rushing defense. Let's take advantage, and they did. With that said, Smoke, I'm talked enough. I'm going to give you the floor. What did this win mean for Milroe? What did it mean for Alabama? And what does this, you know, where does this put Alabama in the SEC talk playoff picture?
Well, Bama's in full control of playoffs. And also, the way these scenarios will work out, we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show. They also control their own destiny in terms of playing in Atlanta. Some things got to happen, but if they win out, they got a real good shot. And I don't even know if they want to play in Atlanta. But what it did for their football team, which is a cultural build for Alabama, and I think this is a cultural win. And when I mean that, I mean to say it like this. I think this is where Sheridan and DeBoer finally realized who and what they want to be with Jalen Milroe at the quarterback position. And you said something interesting to me earlier while we're having our conversation, while we're having an off-air conversation. And I thought about this even before we started that conversation. With all transfer portal and new players coming on teams, I think we need to build in just an area where they get to know each other. That point of your relationship where you're just understanding who's who, what you like, what you don't like, and what triggers you. And in all great relationships, you got to have that maturation period. And I think right now, college football, even college basketball, all college sports, you're seeing that play out right in front of you, because the days of having a young person in your building for 4 to 5 years, not there anymore. You might just had that person in your building, that player in your building, for 3 to 4 months. Heck, they're just finding their way around the building for the most part. Forget the playbook and you understanding who they are. So I think them going to LSU, going down to Baton Rouge, and coming out with this victory, and they're seeing that having to use Jam Miller, Justice Hayes, Jalen Milroe's legs, and when asked upon to make those throws to Ryan Williams, Jam Miller out the backfield again. Give K-Law an opportunity, because he's not truly a receiver. You saw that ball go off his face. He ain't a receiver, but he's a good football player. So find ways to get the ball into his hands, and he'll create explosive plays for you. And then also limit as many times that you have to go to Ryan Williams in terms of just overloading that young man and having him have unrealistic expectations for who he has to grow into. I think he's going to be a dynamite player, but at times you can put too much on a young person's plate for them to feel comfortable and play within themselves on a down-to-down and week-to-week basis. He's still only 17 years old. So just give him enough time to learn himself as well, learn the offense, and get comfortable in making plays in an SEC hostile environment.
I couldn't agree more with Ryan. As electric as he is, it's one of those things, I think, as a coach, it forces you. You're trying to limit him, like almost put him on a pitch count like a pitcher, like, hey, man, we don't want to give this kid too many pitches and wear out his arm this early. And then you put him on a punt return and he returns at 35 yards. I'm like, but damn, he's so electric. You want to keep getting it in his hands. But no doubt, I've kind of preached on that. Look, man, and you said this, you started noticing it in the Vanderbilt game. Defenses, and this is something you don't always see on screen, defenses, especially cornerbacks, are really playing him physical. When you're not watching him, they're hitting him constantly. So even when these routes aren't happening, this kid's taking on a lot of contact from SEC DBs, not high school DBs. And it's still a 17-year-old body, like it or not, that could use a little. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Smoke. I'd like to see. But more so, yeah, I thought the offense was perfect for the night. I thought it was set up perfectly for the weapons, and I thought Milroe looked comfortable in it. And you saw the results. I mean, you don't need games of throwing 45. You need 12 of 18 when the plays need to be made there, and then just bash them on the running game. Take what's there.
And when you're built as their offensive line averages 6'4", I want to say about 335 to 340 pounds, you're built to roll downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Booker and Proctor to the left side, and you got your center that you brought from Washington with you. You got the Law Dog 77 at guard, and you got a young Pritchard still trying to figure out how to truly play in an SEC down-to-down situation. So it's easier when you lean on those guys in a run game. And now the defense has to now react to them in the pass game, because now you go play action pass. Is it quarterback run? Is it screen? Is it draw? So you're not allowing that defense to get their heels, their cleats in the ground and get off every single time on a good offensive line. But I think they can get better if you play to their hands and their strength down the line. And I think Bama's is clicking right now. And I feel good watching this game in inclement weather, hostile environment, finding out who you are. No one blinked, and they just played solid football, and they played on schedule, and they didn't play behind the chains in terms of penalties and making plays going backwards.
Absolutely. And before I get your kind of final thoughts on Alabama and transitioning and a little bit into Ole Miss before we get into games, I want to touch back on what you said we talked about before or earlier this afternoon. This is such a different era of college football, and it's just one of those things like a PSA to fans out there, man. Just watch how this season's gone. It's not the game we've watched even last year, it's changed overnight. And players, you got to give them a second to gel. It's the little things, man. You talked about being in a program for 3 or 4 years. Well, guess what? By year 2, you're not having to learn what you do on the road and what's expected pregame and all the little things that people just don't think about that are kind of a big deal when even if you're a 5-star fish in a new pond, you're trying to figure out how it works in these programs. And when you're doing that in 4 weeks of spring training, when you're trying to learn a playbook, there's just a lot being thrown at you, and there's a lot of gel. You're going to see teams lose to Vanderbilt's, Kentucky's, who also have better players now thanks to the portal that can pop you at any time. So it's just this is an era where be patient and things are going to be okay. Don't freak out. I guess I don't freak out with every dang loss, because it is, and Bama more so than any other. You just changed coaches after 15 years, completely new defense regime, completely new offense. Plus you're dealing with the portal. And now you're starting to see shit kind of gel. Again, this is a Bama team that's got a lot of good wins under the belt. You can pull your hair, but at the end of the day, this Vanderbilt loss isn't that bad of a wart. This is a Vanderbilt team that's going to be in a bowl game. I know the name seems like a wart. That's not a wart. Vanderbilt's a good football team right now. So again,
top 25 football team in the United States in college football.
And now as this season progresses, you see Womack's defense just get a little bit better. What we talked about in the Vanderbilt game where eyes were off, you're seeing people like Jahad Campbell making the right reads and getting there faster, playing faster within a brand new system they're having to learn. And again, in this era of getting to the top 12, You can take that loss, but you want to get hot at the right time. You don't want to be hot out of the gate. You can take that. It might have been good to take those losses. That might have been when all that outside noise was coming about what was happening inside the Bama program, that might have been one of those. You've been in those locker rooms, Smoke. Those are those moments where you can either take that noise and let it just tear the locker room apart, or you say to hell with the rest of the people. We're about to be a team. And it kind of looks like Alabama chose the latter, which is good for everybody in Crimson. With that said, man, do you feel that way? Do you feel like this Bama team, it has now clicked, the lights come on, they found their identity on offense, the defense starting to play with a passion and understand Womack, Swarm, D? Is this a team that's riding high into the playoffs and now a lock?
I wouldn't say a lock. I'd give them an 80% chance of hitting the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, football is still a week-to-week operation. You have to be able to stack weeks upon weeks in order for me to say, yep, you're there. Now, coming from Missouri to now, you're seeing them, yes, they are building, but I'm going to temper my expectations, and I just need to see more.
I appreciate it. I love it. You're always the even kill, and I'm not. I think they are a lock. I think Bama rolls in this thing hot as hell. I think they're one of two programs we're about to really talk about that nobody wants to see as a first game in that playoff. Before I do that, though, I want to say again, Happy Veterans Day to Army 3275. Happy Veterans Day to you, my friend, and Roll Tide. Happy Veterans Day, and hey, all the people that are out here in chat, D. Baker, Whit Will's with us, Justin Summerlin, Mike Coleman, all you guys, Kenappy. I think it's Kyle. I always screw that up. I know you're out there. Appreciate you guys in the chat with us tonight. Make sure I didn't miss anybody there at the end. Roll Tide, all you guys. But yes, Army.
Hey, Petty, if I could just jump in real quick while you're giving shout outs to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I've been getting hit up in my my DMs a ton. And what they're asking us to do a little bit more of, they say they love us, but they say they want us to answer a couple of their questions. They feel like I'm dodging a couple of their strays that they shooting at me. I know I got a Teflon vest on half the time, but let me catch a couple of those questions.
Hey, see if you got questions for the man, Coach Smoke Dixon. You know, I ask this man. He's the man with that. Bring him, man. He'll tell you the truth. You might not like the truth, but he'll give you the truth.
Shoot him at.
Nothing but the truth. With that said, you talked about your boy Marvin Constant, our guy. He started a whole shirt program for this one man we're about to talk about.
He's gonna go broke with that. He's gonna go broke with that. Keep going. As
much love as Lane Kiffin gets in the press for being an offensive mastermind and an analytics guru, and the kind of he is the face of this Ole Miss program. If you watch them from week to week, and look, starting SEC, Ole Miss struggled offensively. It was their defense that kept them in games. And it was their defense that absolutely dominated Georgia last Saturday and led them to a victory that I don't think many people, including a lot of the fans in red and blue, really expected, and especially in that fashion. So the question is, not as just Pete Golden and Ole Miss, is it the best defense in the land? Is it the reason Ole Miss is where they are today, not Lane Kiffin's magical offense?
Petty, I'm going to tell you what, whenever I hear or talk about real good defenses, I've always talked about, can you affect the passer? Can you affect the guy that's running the ball? And can you affect the ones that are catching the football? And what do you do in the red zone? And I know you're a man of stats. Where does Ole Miss rank right now in sacks in college football?
Oh, man. Defensively, number one in sacks, number one in tackles for loss. I mean, they've got the cornerback from Alabama's one of the highest rated lockdown corners in college football based off PFF grading.
Amos.
Yeah, Trey Amos. Offensively, they
got an eraser at linebacker.
Yeah, they got a kid from Clemson and Daugherty. Nobody knows his name because he literally changed it right before the season, but everybody knows Pooh Paul from Arkansas, and those kids are absolutely cleaning up. You've got 4 defense linemen, Princely, Umami Allen. It looks like daggum Javon Curse right now. He's a freak off the edge.
Okay, hold on. See, we were going good. We were on something really, really good.
Oh.
And then you brought out the freak. All right, listen. There's only one freak on defense. There's a freak on offense. There's Randy. And there's freak Javon Curse. All right, let's stay.
Okay, I won't put it in that
up. I know you're fired up and you're ready to go. And But okay, let's get back in the chair. Put the seatbelt on. Okay, you're going good. Keep going.
A mold, a light version.
The
One of
only
each.
thing that they're like is they both rush the passer. Just don't put that
Well,
young
and
man in
they're
trouble. Keep going.
6'7", their arms look like Frankenstein, and they run 4.5s. But no, it's just, look, and you've
Oh,
got
see, that's the difference. One guy ran a 4.35. The other guy ran a 4.53. But I'm with you. Keep going.
Was Curse that fast?
Man, the man is called the Freak. He's a force field when you walk next to him, it's like an avatar character. Well, there aren't many people in this universe. Forget Earth, universe, like my man Freak. But okay, it's okay.
No, but with that
for.
said,
yeah,
that defense is suffocating. They've had 25 sacks and 38 tackles for loss in the last 3 games alone since the Oklahoma. It's and that's these are they're not playing chumps. This is Georgia we're talking about. Is this defense good enough to take? I mean, going into the playoffs, is this a defense? I mean, defense wins championships. Is this
defenses close out games? I'm with you. They have closers on defense, and they have enough guys on that defensive line on the back end to hold up and dominate. See what happened at Ole Miss, and I think people are missing the entire fact. They have so much depth at the defensive line position that they can roll and play with at least 8 to 10 defensive linemen that are good football players. Second level, they have an eraser. When I mean by eraser, that means when everything gets screwed up front and there's a guy running to the sideline by himself, all you see is a flash across your face. What you guys call him down there at Ole Miss, your eraser linebacker? Pooh-Paw? He makes it happen. He's one of the best linebackers right now in college football. And you always need an eraser at the second level because it don't get to the third. Because if it gets to the third level, there's a chance of the scores. He shuts it down once it gets there. But you have the ability to affect the passer. Everyone wants to be pass happy. Well, get pass happy with Ole Miss's defense. They're going to get after you. And when you run the ball, they find ways to get in the backfield and make sure that 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, 2nd and 11. Now you're playing in their hands because they know exactly what you're going to do next. And Pete Golden can call up a lot of exotic blitzes out there. And that back end, the safety position, they look real good. Shout out to Wesley Neighbors, one of the best secondary coaches in the United States. I'm only saying it because I've worked with him. I've seen him go to work. Showed up to Maryland. Maryland secondary wasn't playing great. West got there. Dante Trader, Bo Braid, NFL Dante Trader have a great shot of getting in the league. A lot of that counseling, a lot of that growth period, Wesley Neighbors. And he's also a Bama guy. But he's real daggone good at it.
Number 5, John Saunders, their safety looked like an NFL, so he was making plays all over.
I'm just saying.
That bubble screen wasn't working, and then he was ball hawking in the secondary. That dude's a baller. Yeah, Neighbors has been and look, I want to ask you, as a cornerback, what does a front 7 like that mean to you on your island?
Well, it makes life so much easier because you can be aggressive, you can take chances, double moves, you ain't going for it because they're not going to have that much time. In order to be a good corner, and Deion Sanders is one of the best corners that ever played, he's always played with a guy that can get after the quarterback. That quarterback his clock got to be sped up because as good as you are, you're not covering for 5 seconds. But anybody can go out there and cover for 0.5 seconds. So with that pass rush, and again, that pass rush is just not coming off the edge with your baby freak friend that you want to talk about. That pressure is coming from the
Walter
interior,
Nolan, McGee's or
edge. They're coming from the second level. They're bringing it off the corner. And now Pete Golden is really in his bag. But again, every Bama fan and alum was crushing Pete. But Pete looks real good at calling defenses when you have really good players. So I want people to think about that and just say, for a second. Good to great players make coaches look good. I've never seen a great coach make a bad player look good. Don't work. So they got players, and Pete's dialing up with the help with my man Wesley Neighbors back there tying the front end. and the back end together, and they look like a completely different team. And again, with that said, Georgia's offensive line, if I had to grade them out, C- the entire year. I've never seen a Georgia offensive line this bad. I took a picture and sent it to my man, George Foster, just of those offensive linemen in their stance. Yuck. They can't bend. They can't move. They don't know who they're blocking. They're not.
And when you do that and another team stunting with that type of speed, that's going to cause havoc on an offensive line.
Regardless if it was stunting or not, they couldn't block them straight up.
Couldn't block them coming at them.
No, man. Ole Miss kicked their butt. In a pass game or run, they were rotating offensive linemen just to slow everything down. Carson Beck didn't play great, but he's not playing good because he's getting a lot of leakage and a lot of pressure coming up in his face. They got more issues over there at Georgia than we're thinking about.
I think they do too, and they're going to face another defense this week. It's not like they're getting a lighten up because, hey, Tennessee's coming to town. Tennessee's defense maybe is just as good as Ole Miss. It may be 1A and 1B in the SEC right now. Tennessee's going to bring some noise. But one more thing on Pete Golden before we move on, I want to ask you, Smoke, can any of that be his success now be attributed to experience? And I want to preface that by saying one of the things you always heard was Saban fell in love with Golden on the chalkboard. Golden was an X and O whiz. He just knew the game in and out. But knowing the game in and out and calling a game live, a live defense, are two different things. You've got to have flow of the game. There's a lot of learning. A lot of mistakes are things that work on a chalkboard that don't work as the flow of a game changes. And that's what I know. A lot of Bama fans, like you said, were very critical of Pete, but is it possible that a lot of his shortcomings were just lack of experience in big game? I mean, he came from like Delta State and some smaller schools. Could it be he's now just getting some experience under his belt, knowing when to bring the pressure, when not to, when to disguise things? Or is it all, hey, you got some boys that can eat, it makes you really look good?
Two things can be true, and I think what you're saying is both. Yes, he got players that's making them look really good, but failure and experience is the best teacher for all of us. Mm-hmm. And I think there's times that we look at a place and a person to put them together, and automatically you want that person at that place to have instant success. But it takes time like everything else. And I think it's just the right time that now you're seeing Pete Golden getting in his bag. And also, like I said, the ability to have a Wesley Neighbors on staff with him is no different than my man Glenn Schumann and Kirby over there at Georgia. They're both guys that started out from the ground up, meaning Wesley Neighbors and Glenn Schumann. They worked all the way from the ground up, and you see them just steadily coming. And they understand that defense inside and out, can make the adjustment. Every good coordinator needs somebody to lean on, especially on the back end, to put the back, the middle, and the front end all together. And I just think that when you have somebody like that knows the defense, that's played the defense, daggone it, Wesley Neighbors helped build that playbook as well, too, instead of constructing it and putting it together on a year-to-year basis, and also helped with the installation of it when he was a young coach. So when you have that with you and you have a guy that can also give you answers upon answers, hey, man, sometimes it just clicks. And I think this is the year that you see everything clicking. Forget the offense and forget the pace, because pace and all that wasn't anything. Ole Miss went out, lined up, cleats in the ground, and knocked Georgia around like we thought Georgia was going to knock Ole Miss around. They were the bullies on the block.
It was alarming. They absolutely were. And I think that's a great way to end the Smoke. And I don't think what you said about Neighbors, I don't think many people realize that how Ole Miss is really, you want to talk about taking a page out of the Saban book. They've got Joe Judge, former head coach of the New York Giants, is an analyst right now. Zach Arnett, head coach of Mississippi State last year, analyst. They've got former head coaches as analysts right now. And like you said, the people that are on the field are guys that are going to be moving up the chart like you used to see with Nick Saban. And that's, you got coaches like that surrounding your program, it makes the head man look a whole lot better. But, hey, look, I think those are two programs right now, Alabama and Ole Miss, that nobody in college football wants to draw in that opening round of the playoffs if they both find their way in. And I think Alabama still has a shot based off tiebreaker scenarios that are crazy to find their way in Atlanta before that even starts. So I think Alabama still has a lot of SEC championship aspirations. With that said, man, we got some games to talk about, some questions to answer. But before we do that, we got to get to our other sponsor. And tonight, let's do it a little bit special. Let's raise those title towels for our veterans. Justin Summerlin, I saw that you also serve, man. Happy Veterans Day to you, buddy. Again, to all of our veterans out there. I'm going to say this throughout the show tonight because we can't give you guys enough love. We don't do this without you. Thank you to the veterans. Much, much love. So all you Bama fans, go to whitwheelsports.com today. Tell them promo code standard, get you a little discount, and get that title towel that my man Smoke was just showing you, and wave it in the air this weekend for those veterans, those people that gave you the freedom to wave it and act like a madman at a college football game every Saturday. So again, thank you, Whitwheel Sports, for always being the bomb sponsor here at the Bama Standard. And more than anything, we thank you, veterans. We love you, love you, love you, because we love our freedom, and you are the badasses that gave it to us. So with that said, you're welcome, Justin, man. Thank you, man. Don't thank me. Thank you. With that said, let's talk a little college football, man. Last year, I think a lot of people got tired of, and look, let me preface that. I'm sorry, I'm jumping the shark a little bit here. If you're not paying attention, there's upsets every week, man. Miami got that rambling wreck, popped Miami in the face. Look, Ole Miss was an upset. They're going off. BYU about took it from Utah. So teams are either on upset alert, or other teams are trying to find their way into that playoff berth. And one of them, and that's what I was getting to, last year there was so much noise around the Colorado program, and people almost got so much force-fed the Dion and all the hype. And then you saw the results on the field, and everybody's like, this looks a little more hype than substance. Well, nobody's hyping them this year. And you turn around, and every weekend they're covering spreads and kicking ass. And Shedeur Sanders is really rolling right now. And look, at any time Colorado steps on the field, they've got the two best football players on the field, and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. An electric football team right now. They've got a big one. We talked about it earlier. Utah almost did us all a favor and knocked off BYU. They are headed to Colorado. Early game, 11 o'clock Central at Fox. Colorado's favored by 10 in this one. Utah's always feisty. It's not a team a lot of times after a game like that in BYU, which is a big rival for Utah, you'd say, can they pick themselves up? Utah seems one of those programs. It's kind of a blue collar. You don't really have to worry about that. How do you see them? And again, I don't know if you haven't been paying attention, but the quarterback that they've had for the better part of 2 decades, Cam Rising, has finally retired from college football to his T-bird in the sky. They back up Isaac. I had his name a second ago. Isaac somebody. But what do you think, Smoke? Is Colorado? Is everybody going to look up and see Colorado in the playoffs, or is this one of the times where we're finally talking about them and Utah comes and pops them?
Well, I don't think this game is going to be that easy to start out with, just because of the pride and just the physicality that Utah plays with, and how Coach Whittingham always has his team prepared to play. But I do believe Colorado is a different team. And I want to say this, even last year, everyone looked at it and said, okay, they only had 4 wins, but that's +3 from the year before. And if any head coach in the United States, you tell them, I'll give you 3 victories plus what you had last year, they're all say, you know what, great job. But we all looked at 4 for Colorado last year and said, oh my God, they only won a game that year before. So they're +3 in that category. And if you look at it now, this year, again, they won 4 last year. Right now, they're +3. So any other coach in the United States, and we're saying what heck of a job that coach is doing and how he's turned that program over. And I think that we all need to give Coach Prime and that Colorado staff their grace and their flowers at this point, and stop doubting, because they're not doing it the conventional way of saying that it's not working. We're seeing it work. The players that he took in the portal, regardless of who, where, why, and when, they're at Colorado and they're playing well. Don't matter if they're his kids, if you recruited them, they're there and there's nothing illegal going on. What Warren Sapp and D. Lou's doing on defense, in terms of that defensive line, my goodness. Overall, that defensive coordinator at Colorado should be in consideration for any big job. And I know Coach Prime wants to hold on to him, but that's going to be hard, because everyone looks at Colorado's offense and like, oh my God, you got 2 of the best players. They do. But that defense has gotten so sticky on the back end in terms of coverage with Hood, Colton Hood, and also with Travis Hunter. And also up front with the guys up front just getting after the passer, getting after the runner. Every time you look around, and then you have Shallow at the safety position, being an enforcer. Like, they're becoming a complete team. And they're one of the teams, like you said, they're getting hot at the right time of the year. And Coach Prime has his thumb, and he's sitting there on his right thumb on those guys at the right time, and they're playing good. So it's okay to give grace and give the props and give your flowers to what they're doing out there in Colorado. Just stay tuned. Like I said, football is a week-to-week game. This week is a different challenge that they have. They'll have to be physical, and they're going to have to come out and play a disciplined game because Utah is not going to lay down and just let you walk over them and beat them up.
I agree. I think Utah is never a team that's under Kyle Whittington that's going to lay down. They are look, when Rising went out this year, you're like, well, that's probably it for him. He's been their workhorse for a decade. How are they going to respond? Well, they respond by keep winning and playing defensive football. But on the flip side, man, as a gambling guy, teams that continuously cover spreads get my attention because not only are you just covering spreads, you're doing. They put those lines out because that's what they want people to bet on both sides, but that's where they think you're that much better than the other team. When you're covering those spreads, that's telling you're not only winning these games, you're winning them by what Vegas expects you to. And that I know that may not be much to some, but that's what starts getting my attention. I'm like, shit, Colorado's not just beating teams; they're beating teams right now. I actually expect them. And my man Jason Calvert in here, we were walking this morning around this Florida heat. We were talking about Colorado, and we were trying to figure out who is the best quarterback in college right now coming out. And I think it's hands down Shedeur Sanders. I don't think it's debatable.
No, I wouldn't debate that one.
Well, I mean, I think it's him, and then like it's such a drop off. We couldn't come up with another as far as NFL prospects. I think Shedeur's your guy.
I think Shedeur is the best quarterback, but I don't believe there's that big of a gap. I don't think there's a huge gap.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know, but I couldn't think of another one that I would take as a first round. I mean, I know Jalen's going to get a lot of talk in that.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Ward is still a good quarterback.
Good Lord, how did I completely? I guess the rambling wreck made me completely forget Cam Ward. Cam Ward still. Yeah.
And as much as you're still going to have to investigate Quinn Ewers. Mm-hmm. Right, and you're going to have to still do your homework and go back to Carson Beck and see why hasn't it all clicked this year
for Beck. Yeah.
But he's going to have something to say in that. Will Howard is going to have a conversation in it, and I'm not saying that who's better than what, but these are the guys that's in the conversation. Jackson Dart from last week's game, you're going to have to put him into conversation of how they're playing.
You can't keep ignoring him. I've almost kind of ignored Dart, but I mean the kids. There's a little bit of Josh Allen and Jackson Dart where the kid just keeps. I'm not doing that with Curse again, but the type of player where he just kind of plays. He's just a physical dude that kind of don't always look pretty, but gets it done.
Yeah, but Josh looks pretty and he gets it done.
He's getting prettier. He was a little turnover prone there in some.
He still is.
Because he gets crazy at times, and that to me, that's how Dart plays the college game. I'm not saying he's going to translate. Don't read.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm just not a big fan of. I think Mike Tomlin said it best yesterday when someone from the media asked him, is it time for us to get in the conversation with Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson? He's like, stop. Lamar Jackson's a 2-time NFL MVP to a rookie. That's not a fair comparison to Jaden Daniels, and that's highly offensive to Lamar Jackson.
I think it's the way that it's prefaced, though. I think people are saying it wrong. It's more their style of play resembles that. They don't do it to that level, but they play that style of football game. Does that make sense? Like, no, they're not as good as that person, but that's the style of game they play. So that's who you kind of compare them to, even though they never reached that level of good, hardly ever.
So would you compare Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson? They're both mobile guys.
Not that, man. Yeah,
See?
actually, I would. Yeah, I would.
And I would not, because I think they're too
But Lamar's faster. He's more. Josh is more run you over. Lamar's run past you. But they're both going to throw it up. Hey, they're both going to throw it up in times where you're like, holy shit.
Nah, but listen, we'll keep going. That's a whole nother day.
Okay, yeah, I know. We have gone down a rabbit hole we didn't mean to. Woody, I actually see Colorado covering this game. I like Colorado. They are playing good football. I don't think Utah has the offense. And I think what you said, Colorado's defense is good enough to shut them down. I think Colorado continues to roll this weekend at home in Boulder.
Agreed.
With that said, we got another big one out at BYU. We almost had the upset late Saturday night, but I'm sorry, Smoke. The officials got their dirty-ass hands involved in that one. Threw a phantom call on 4th down and gave BYU the win over Utah. It was heartbreaking, but it's not over. We still have a chance for an upset out there. Kansas looked Kansas is one of those teams that was real good last year, so you had high expectations. And again, we talked about this earlier in the show. You bring in new pieces. Sometimes it doesn't gel right out of the gate. Well, I think Kansas fell victim to that early in the season, but it has started to gel as of late. Just coming off a beatdown of Iowa State last weekend. They are headed out to BYU, which is a tough place to play. The altitude, all that stuff, late at night. Crowd's going to be in it, but the line is low. BYU -3. Is this our upset special of the weekend, Smoke?
I would say, yeah. It got upset written all over it, just from the fact that, like you said, Kansas lost their offensive coordinator, Andy Koelnicki, to Penn State. So now you have a new offensive coordinator. Again, it takes time. Terminology, timing, understanding who your players are, how to play to your players' strength, not their weakness. But the thing that Kansas got a bunch of good athletes that they're going to put a lot of pressure on a very good secondary of BYU. But now you have Jalen Daniels that now, when I say he's the equalizer in college football, is a mobile quarterback. And he's good enough passing the ball and good enough as a runner to now put you in conflict. How are you going to match up? And they do enough on offense in terms of running some option, running some wing T looks, getting some spread looks, and some tempo looks to now put that pressure on you with 3 receivers, and all of them have 300 yards. So they're highly productive. So you can't say, you know what? I'm going to put all of my eggs and all my coverage towards Grimm or Skinner or Arnold. All of those guys can hurt you. And I'm not even saying the running back yet. That can come and give you what you want. Devin Neal, which has 874 yards, all-time leading rusher in Kansas history. So you have an offense, and their defense they're going to do enough just to keep you off and playing in front of the sticks to put you in a situation now that with a couple of minutes left, you might look up at the clock and you're down double digits and you're pressing that alert button, and now you don't have a chance. So they have a recipe, like I said, for success. And their special teams, they've returned 2 kickoffs this year for a touchdown. People don't pay attention to enough of special teams, but special teams can get you in and out of a game in a heartbeat like that.
They're special. And, man, to echo what you say, I feel like BYU is one of those teams, like you say, when they're playing the Utahs and those teams that like to muck it up and play dirty, they can make the game ugly and win those ways. But it seems like when they step out and have to face a team that's got some real athletes, and I don't know how many they've faced this year of that caliber, I feel like they can get got. And you broke it down eloquently. I can't do it much better about what kind of threat they pose offensively. I think this is right for an upset special. I think Kansas goes out there and gets it done this weekend and knocks off BYU and keeps this crazy-ass college football world rolling. I'm pumped for it. I will be up till 1 watching this crazy game, I'm sure, with the rest of the country pulling for
Tough
Kansas.
place to play, though. That's a tough
Oh,
place.
it is. Oh, look, if it gets rolling downhill, if BYU, look, sustains those long drives, doesn't give Kansas's dynamic offense many opportunities, and when they're behind and got to score quick and you feel like you got to get going, the pressure gets on you, then the wheels could fall off real quick for Kansas, and we could be looking up and BYU still being undefeated and us saying, damn, who's going to knock them off? May not. But with that said, I'm sorry, BYU Rock Chalk. But man, we got one big one more, and then we're going to get to questions. I know you got to get out of here, Smoke, but we got a big one fresh off the beatdown in Oxford. Georgia has the Tennessee Vols coming between the hedges, and man, the Vols are hungry. They saw what Ole Miss's defensive front did to Carson Beck and the Georgia Bulldogs. But this is a game where it's maybe a tale of two offenses that are still trying to find some identity or life. I know Nico was a hot topic. He left the game last weekend against Mississippi State with some mysterious upper body injury. But Tennessee's offense is one where you watch it, and every week you see the plays are there. Guys are wide open, and either Nico 1 week is overthrowing them, or the next week Squirrel and Brew and company are dropping them. But on the flip side, they've quietly produced one of the better running games in the SEC behind Dylan Thompson. He's got 1,100 rushing yards already and 20 touchdowns. He's been the best back in the SEC. So they do have a running game. On the other side, Georgia, you just saw what happened to them in Oxford. That offense has some problems. Beck is missing Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers more than anybody, but more so, he's maybe missing a road grader offensive line. This is a game that, a lot of people are still saying Tennessee needs to win out. I'm not sure, but this is absolutely an elimination game for Georgia. And I said at the beginning of the show, the last time Kirby Smart lost back-to-back games at Georgia was his first year, and it was to Ole Miss and Tennessee. Could history repeat itself, Smoke?
It can. I mean, like you said, it's a recipe for disaster because Georgia is not doing a good job of winning in the trenches. On the defensive side, they're doing a good enough job of it, and we'll get there in a second. But on the offensive side, you're not seeing Georgia being able to control the pace of the game anymore. And I think that's what we're missing. Like, there was always times that even with Ladd and Bowers that you can throw it out in the perimeter and those guys create something. But the Georgia that we all know and understand what they are, the physical part of the game was, they had 5 guys up front and usually had a tight end that looked like somebody that can play offensive line as well, too, with Washington and not Bowers, and controlled the line of scrimmage to a total of getting 4.5, 5 yards per carry. And you look up and it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. Now they're not getting that type of quality in terms of in the run game and that clip. So now Carson Beck is playing 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. And now he's not seeing the game as clean. And again, I believe we might have given him too much credit for what we believe he should have been, but not understanding who he is as a passer, as a quarterback. One of the things that Stetson Bennett did for Georgia, he elevated that team. And everyone wants to say, oh, no, their defense was great. We understand. Yes. But he did things to elevate that team. Carson Beck is not elevating them, and he's hurting them by turning the ball over and putting it in harm's way. Travis Etienne is a good football player, but I believe when they went in the portal and brought him out from Florida, they thought they were getting an explosive, dynamic football player. No. Frazier's putting the ball on the ground in terms of fumbling. On the outside, I mean, there's nobody that you're afraid of. You cut on the Alabama film, Alabama's young corners had them strapped and locked up. They got plays when guys got their eyes in the backfield and it was blown coverages. So everyone's going to look at it like, oh, yeah, he had 130 yards. Sometimes you have to study the stats. Just like you study Carson Beck's stats against good teams, good players, he's played his worst. Even in the second half against Bama, he had nothing to lose. They're down by 28 points. Sometimes you put your back against the wall after you've been getting your butt kicked so much. The only thing that you can do is come out and fight.
Yeah.
So, yes, Tennessee does have a real opportunity to go out there, and now it all comes down to them on offense. Is Nico healthy enough to start and finish the game, but also contribute as a difference maker? He's going to have to be. Like, Jackson Dart was a difference maker last weekend on offense.
Oh, yeah.
Not only throwing the football, but there were timely scrambles that he moved the chain.
Third down conversion.
There you go. And kept that team rolling downhill. And you looked up, and it was 2 minutes left, and they were getting close to victory formation, keeping everybody off the field. Nico's going to have to come out and pull one of those off. And both of those quarterbacks have been so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Their defense is going to have to pull them out. And Georgia's defense did not show up last week. If it was rain that was making those guys slip, they looked like they didn't have their cleats in the ground as many times as Ole Miss did. But that's no excuse for busted coverage, lack of communication, lack of gap integrity, and their playmakers. Michael Williams didn't show up and give us anything that we saw against Texas when he's healthy.
Well, and anybody knows the game knows more times than not, rain favors the offense. You're making the cuts. The defense is reacting.
I didn't see Ole Miss defense not reacting. So
that's what it goes to your point. So again, this is a tough spot. Georgia's a 9. It started out at 10.5. The line's already been bet down to 9. So that tells you that there's money coming in on Tennessee. And again, I think the question is Tennessee's offense. And of course it's going to be in Athens and everybody's. And look, you can't just write off Georgia. Kirby's one of the best coaches in college football. He's going to have that team ready. He's going to have them motivated. But the question is, can they answer the bell? Do they have what it takes to answer the bell? You've got a guy coming in. Look, Ole Miss we talked about Umami Ellen coming off that edge. Pierce for Tennessee is hell on wheels. He's a top 10 NFL prospect off the edge. And it's not him. Tennessee is also too deep on that front. And if Georgia's offensive line don't get fixed, I expect this to be a low-scoring game. I don't see any way Georgia covering 9. They better be watching out for upset number 2 in a row if they can't get their offense together and Tennessee's defense gets rolling. But again, I've got to see Tennessee do it too because they're
Georgia got issues. Georgia got real issues.
I think they do, man. And nobody wants to admit it because it's Georgia and what they've done and yada yada. But
when a team like Georgia is missing trench warfare players on the offensive line, and they can't run the ball at a high clip and control the pace of the game, they have real issues. They just got to figure them out.
I agreed, man. I couldn't say. I don't think say anymore. They've got real issues. I don't like the 9. I'm telling you. I think we're going to look up in the fourth quarter, and Georgia's going to have a damn ball game on their hands, and it's going to be up to one of the offenses to make a play to win the game. I think this is going to be the 40 over under 48. That's what I expect. I think we're going to get down to the fourth quarter, and this is going to be 20-17 type of ball game, and somebody's offense is going to step up. I'm going to be real interested to see who does it because Georgia's back's against the wall, and Tennessee's playing for a chance to reclaim that glory of the 90s. With that said, Smoke, I know we got you on a timer. We got a few questions out there. Before we get to them one more time, man, thank you to everybody in the chat for spending your time here with us tonight. Your time, like Ty always says, is a very valuable commodity, and you're spending it here with us on Veterans Day. So thank you to all of our fans, and more importantly, thank you to the veterans for giving us this opportunity to talk football on a Monday night. With that said, we had a few questions. Well, first of all, I want to throw this up to my man, Justin. Happy Veterans Day to all the vets and to himself. Again, thank you, Justin, for what you do.
Shout out to you, Justin.
All right. Army 3275 question: should Bama want to play in the SEC championship game? Because if they lose, they'd likely leave us out. I think this is a great question and one I posed to you earlier. We're in a scenario where there's likely going to be not maybe one, but 2 10-2 teams. That say A&M knocks off Texas. There's no doubt we're getting a 2-game 10-2 SEC championship. And the thought train is if you've got 3 losses, you're not in the playoff. Is an SEC team at risk of getting knocked out of the playoffs with a loss in the title?
I mean, you can't penalize a team for getting in there, and you can't turn it down for not playing in the game. And again, you're here to play games. So you go in and you play the game and you figure it out. If you lose in the SEC championship, most likely you're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs anyway. So therefore, yeah, I'd want to play because I want to win my conference.
Okay.
There's no way I want to ever walk backwards into a playoff game. I want to come out swinging and healthy and play in it. So if they have an opportunity playing, I don't think it's going to hurt them. I think they should be fine.
And I love that you're giving that answer. I can talk football all day, but I love from a guy that actually played the game, because I'm actually also on a show with Matt Caddell, who played wide receiver at Alabama, and he echoed your sentiments of he would want to play in the game. So there you go, right there. The guys with crimson cut from the crimson cloth tell you, give us the damn game and let's go win the ball game. So great one. Will Sports, I know the answer, but Smoke, how much of Lawson's INT was because of film study?
A lot. I mean, he played. He knew that letting that first window go, that he knew that Garrett Nussmeier would think that he was going to run with it, because that's what usually happens. That first one goes. He's the first one in the book, and technically, how you're supposed to play it. Take that first one and carry it. Then that second window should open up. But he let that first one go, pass it on over to Campbell, and he just stayed in that window, and it was just a great play. That's studying film, and again, I think a lot of people don't give Deontay Lawson a lot of credit in terms of myself, but his football intelligence is very high. It's just he struggles a little bit in space and with speed play. He's not truly an eraser, but he's a good football player that made an instinctive football play.
There you go. And one of our most loyal fans, last question tonight, Monica Petway. First of all, roll tide, Monica. How about that beat down in Baton Rouge? Will Bama continue making statements, Smoke?
If they continually play towards the strength of their team and the strength of their personnel, I think they should have a good chance at speaking about who wins the national championship. But if they go back to revert to what a coach does well or what a player does well on their own and it doesn't match up, I think we'll all be at the same place again, throwing our hands up saying why and how comes we haven't been winning those close games and why do we look so out of sync. It looks in sync because both player and coaching staff are truly understanding who they are now. If it goes the other way, you'll see what they look like, and you'll have another Tennessee game.
There you have it, from the mouth of man. No better way to close this out. With that said, it's been another wonderful Monday night talking ball with my man, Gerald Smoke Dixon. Coach, tell us about how they can follow you. You got another big show coming up tomorrow night with the flagship. Tell us about it, and I will let you get out of here, good sir.
Bama Standard. Y'all know the time. Y'all know the place. Come join myself, Justin Riley, Steve Brown, Stephen M. Smith, the true talent of that show, and the grunt muscle man himself that hates Pete Golden's guts. But I'm going to get all over his butt tomorrow about how great Pete Golden's doing right now in football, Marvin Constant. And you can find me, Coach Smoke Dixon on X, on IG, Smoke VD Dixon. Follow, like it. I got a bunch of stuff going on in terms of content. And if y'all want to get in a good conversation with me, man, at me and I'll at you back. And we'll get it going. Appreciate you again, Petty.
Hey, always love it, Smoke. And tell Marvin if he wants some real guns, I'll tell him how to work out. And if he needs the phone number to a defensive coordinator, I know one over in Oxford. Tell him that's from Petty.
Man, you know what? I've always said this. I know people that have fast cars that they really don't ever bring their fast car out until it's needed. But you and Marvin keep on showing y'all guns off, man. I don't think y'all really got them. Dude, whenever y'all want to have a showdown of guns, I might bring mine out, but dude, not too often, not too late.
You and Marvin are bringing out the bazookas. I'm in a BB contest. I don't know.
Now you're backing up. Now we all shoot bullets.
All right. With that said, man, I'm Daniel Petty, the host of the show. You can catch me here every Monday night, and then you can catch me 1 hour after my man Smoke on the Bama Standard with the final whistle at 8 Central. Matt Caddell, Chris James, the star of the show, Dan James, the prettier, bigger, more athletic version of the James family. And then you got Ty Hayes, Lushawn Graves. Look, we always cut up. We call ourselves the Avengers because we just fight truth and justice and the American way of college football, I guess. Hell, I don't know. But we're always there to have a good time. Come see us tomorrow night. And then, man, we've got a whole lineup. We got the Crimson Dynasty coming at you at 6:30 Central Wednesday. Cece Payne, Dan James, Stephen Smith again. I think JB may be on with them sometimes. Also, coming up after that, you got Teague's Take at 8:15 Central, man. It's the man. It's George Teague breaking down film. If you're not watching that, I really don't know what the hell you're doing, because it is I mean, it's one of the legends of Alabama breaking down game film. I can't really pump it up more than that. Then, as soon as the game ends with the mighty Mercer, whatever they are, we will be here to break down all the exciting content and what you need to know from what will inevitably be a barn burner of a football game. No, we'll be here to talk about it and then get you ready for us.
Listen, that's
Nick
Alabama.
Saban be getting pissed at me right now, wouldn't he?
Before I run off, that's a problem with Alabama fans and what happened at Vanderbilt. You take each opponent like they can wear you out. Stop taking opponents lightly. My advice for the night, and I'm checking out on that. Stop taking them people lightly. They can beat you. They get on the field just like you do.
Every game's a playoff, right?
Every play counts, and every player should be respected, and every team should be respected. Respect the other team.
There you go. And last show of the week, talking Bama on Sunday with JB, JM, Stephen Smith, Marshall, if he's still there. I don't know if he's gone to the military yet. And speaking of Marshall, we appreciate you, brother. Smoke, we'll catch you later. And before I close off, I do want to give one more final shout out. Thank you, Will. It is the Mercer Bears. Ooh. Another Bears, man. Maybe they actually have a bear mascot, unlike the Ole Miss Rebel Black Bear Land Sharks. So, with that said, thank you all for showing up on this Monday. We appreciate it. And more than anything, thank you, veterans, for your service to this country. Thank you for letting us do what we do, man. Without you, this country isn't what it is. To all the guys and ladies in our chat that serve this country, we love you. You are the A team. So, with that said, man, we will see you. We got a great lineup. Be back tomorrow night. Catch my man Justin, who's about to shut me out of this thing for the Bama Standard. Love y'all. See y'all next week.